O'Reilly Auto Parts.
When you hear this,
they've got him again,
and this,
he scored,
and this,
oh boy, what a move by Embiid!
You think of us. We are sports. 97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
The Philadelphia 76ers are tied 1-1 with 2-2 with the Boston Celtics. We are exactly where we entered the weekend as. We went into the weekend with a tie series, and we come out of the weekend with a tied series. I am Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night, the Power Hour on 97.3 ESPN. Hanging out with you guys till 7 o'clock tonight. As always, I love to hear from you. You can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. You can text in at 609-403-0973. How are you feeling today? In many ways, the Sixers won a game that nobody expected them to. If you were watching the game and you were being honest with yourself, you had your doubts. You had your concerns that this team was not going to win that game. But they grabbed that game and found the way to survive. And now you have to wonder, what is the mentality of a Boston team that lost 2 games because James Harden went off? You know, Embiid played really well on Friday, and he didn't play particularly, poor or badly yesterday afternoon either. But for whatever reason, Boston's biggest problem right now is James Harden. And I don't know if it's just psychological for them or if we're watching something happen before our eyes. Look, I told you guys coming into this series here on Game Night on 97.3 that I had the Sixers in 7. And the reason why I've had the Sixers in 7 was in many ways because I looked at a Boston team and I said what Michael Wilbon just said about 20 minutes ago on PTI on ESPN television. Take a listen.
The Celtics don't look to me to be as good as they were last year. And I think it's for a reason. I got to give our friend Charles Barkley credit for this, for mentioning it on his show in real time. He says they've turned into just a 3-point jump shooting team all the time. You got 2 wings like that. You need to be do more than firing off threes.
We just talked about this on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill this afternoon. Me and Mike talked about it here on 97.3 ESPN. Boston, for whatever reason, when you get in their face and you don't let them chuck it from 3, their offense has problems. And at some point, the tables have turned. Boston used to be the mentally tough team. Boston used to be the team that was resilient. But if there's something that's been brought up that we're going to get into, it was brought up originally by Keith Smith, who joined Mike Gill last week on the Sports Bash. Bryan Toporek, who joins me today on Game Night from the NBA podcast, he has brought this up as well. This is not the same Boston team. It's just what Wilbon said. That this Boston team, there's something off. There's something wrong. There's something not there for them. And if you're Boston, you have to look around and think, we maybe didn't anticipate this kind of dogfight. And when PJ Tucker got that rebound yesterday, and got on Embiid at the end of that fourth quarter, that was the moment we've all been waiting for. Somebody, anybody on this team to publicly and visibly, tangibly, that we all could point to and said, he's holding people accountable. Let's go. Watching the Celtics walk up the court at the end of overtime and take forever to get into their set and get off a shot really has to make you wonder, is this team, this Sixers team, more mentally tough than Boston is? Do they have more desperation? Bryan Windhorst this morning on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max on 97.3 ESPN said this.
Jaylen Brown cannot leave the three-point shooter open. If you give up a shot to Embiid there, even if it's over in a non-ideal situation over Tatum and you give up the basket, okay, you've got a timeout, you've got the ball. Can't do it. Secondly, when you are down, you cannot hold for the last shot at the buzzer. You have got to give yourself another opportunity for, this is just basketball 101.
I get it, man.
And Joe Mazzulla, he could have called timeout and told them that. They didn't need to be told. They know that. And it wasn't just Tatum. They walked the ball up, okay? And Tatum didn't even get the ball till there were 6 seconds left. They run the offensive play that isolates Jason Tatum on Tyrese Maxey. He's got roughly a 7 or 8 inch height advantage. Tatum does not look to shoot. Tatum looks to drive and kick. If you are looking to win this game, you are not driving into Joel Embiid.
And that's the problem. Boston, as he said, they know what to do. They know better, and they're not doing it. And I think that's the biggest key of all. Again, Bryan Toporek will join us coming up in about roughly 12, 13 minutes from now. As always, I like to hear from you guys. Tell me how you feel. Look, I was with a group of people yesterday, and they all were elated. The Sixers won. Now, we all paused. We all were sitting there like, come on, that Marcus Smart 3. Hopefully it's not in. The buzzer went off. Please just give us the signal that the game is over. And as soon as the game was over, it was like relief went over everybody. Because before that, everyone was looking around and saying, guys, why did Jason Tatum get with a push off? I mean, that was a conversation for about 5 minutes. But the Tatum push off ended up not mattering. Thankfully. Over on the text board, George in Summers Point chimes in and says, hey, Josh, at 609-403-0973. George Summers Point says, I was never a big PJ Tucker fan until yesterday. When he got in Embiid's ear at the end of regulation, I think that's what exactly the Sixers needed. They have not had a vocal leader like that in a long, long time. I don't know if he's going to make the difference in the series, but that is one big thing the Sixers have this year that they have not had in the past. George Summers Point. George, I asked this question to Mike Gill on the Sports Bash, and I'll ask it to everybody here. Ben Simmons was the better athlete. Ben Simmons was the more athletic player, but he lacked mental toughness. You downgraded athletically to get better mentally. Do we feel that's enough? It certainly looks like it right now. Look, outside of Jimmy Butler, this organization has not had, as Brett Brown called it, an adult in the room for a while, if ever. And frankly, watching the Sixers team win 2 games against Boston in this series makes you wonder, was it really that simple? Was just changing the culture of this team in that locker room, going and unloading Ben Simmons, saying, Brett Brown, thanks for everything you did, but we're moving on. Did that change of culture really make that much of a difference? Because right now it looks like it. And as George Summers Point said, you might not have been a PJ Tucker guy. You might have said, and I'll put words in George's mouth, but I've seen Twitter, I've seen Instagram, I've run into people out and about who have said, Why are we giving this guy all this money? Sometimes when you don't have something and you need it, you're forced to pay a premium for it because you didn't get it sooner. The Sixers had to pay a premium to get a guy like PJ Tucker because, as George Summers' point says, they haven't had a vocal leader like PJ Tucker in a while. And when you don't cultivate that, like look at the Eagles. The Eagles have prioritized culture and people in the locker room along with the talent evaluation. And now it's paying off for the Eagles, right? The Sixers, they valued what Ben Simmons could do more than what Ben Simmons was doing. And that made them kick the can down the lane further and further until they just couldn't do it anymore. Look, we all assumed that at some point James Harden might be a Sixer because of Daryl Morey. But there was never a guarantee that it was going to be Ben Simmons being swapped for him. Remember, there were those rumors that the Rockets wanted Tyrese Maxey, and Daryl Morey said no. Now Morey looks smart, but at the time, there were a lot of people who criticized Sixers saying, how can you hang on to this young guy and not get a proven veteran like Harden? Instead, you had to give up Ben Simmons and Seth Curry and Andre Drummond to get James Harden. And right now, all three of those guys you traded are all out of the postseason. 609-403-0973. Andrew Summers Point says, thank God for PJ Tucker. and all of God's people say, amen. That was my little addition. Andrew, you're right, though. It is, PJ Tucker is a blessing. And I think his presence and his mentality are going to be a huge part of this team moving forward, because we saw this team fight and claw and win ugly games in the regular season. Now they're doing it in the postseason. And I think it's a huge part of the conversation that we will have about this team moving forward. That it literally took getting one guy and getting rid of another guy to change the mentality of this team. 609-403-0973. I'll get to the Philly stuff a little bit later in the hour, because obviously the Phillies win yesterday was a big deal. And I think there were a lot of people who were surprised that Rob Thompson made the right change in the lineup that paid off. And look, I'll get into a little bit more earlier. I mean, a little bit more later this hour, but I will say this before we hit the break. I was having this conversation with people yesterday down at Gusto Brewing, and great job by Zach and everyone to see everyone down there yesterday. But I was over there, and I'm telling the guys over there, I said, one of the things that people don't understand is that we, as a sports fan base, and we've all done this, me, you listening on, listening to me on 97.3 ESPN and on 97.3 ESPN mobile app, we all have done this. We all have projected our own sensibilities, our own way of looking at the world and sports onto other people. And what happens is when we look at a Rob Thompson with the Phillies, and we look at a Doc Rivers with the Sixers, and we say they should do this, they should do that, they have to do this, why don't they do that? We are doing it in the bubble of our own environment, of our own knowledge, of our own situation, of our own sensibilities, and we don't have the perspective that they have in the midst of the storm. It's easy to be the guy on the outside looking in. It's not as easy to be the guy on the inside looking out, having to explain to everyone who is not walking through the war what the decision you made in the heat of the moment. And I think that for people like Doc Rivers and Rob Thompson, are they going to get everything right? Absolutely not. But when they do get things right, we have to give them credit. And I think yesterday you have to give Rob Thompson a ton of credit. And you have to give Doc Rivers a lot of credit because they have both made decisions recently that show maturity and show that they are willing to make adjustments. I think those are important things to highlight as we move forward. Coming up next, Sixers Celtics tied 2-2. Can Philadelphia win this series? We'll ask Bryan Toporek from the NBA podcast, Forbes Sports NBA writer, next, and then a little bit later this hour, more of your texts. Keep them coming. 609-403-0973. And you can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle.
The NBA playoffs continue on ESPN Radio.
Lob for the rim, alley-oop, dunk, thrown down by Anthony Davis.
The road struggles continue for Golden State as they drop Game 3 in Los Angeles. How will the Warriors respond in Game 4 on the road again? Game 4, the Lakers and Warriors, presented by Indeed. Coverage begins tonight at 9:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Listen to the NBA playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN.
Tired of overpaying? Get to Matt Blatt Nissan and get $7,500 off any new Nissan Ariya, Armada, or Titan. Or pay 0% APR with 0 down on every new Nissan Rogue or Altima in stock.
Oh yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Are you stuck in a loaner lease? AJ the Trade Man wants to get you released so you can drive home in any new Nissan, Altima, or Rogue with 0 down and 0 interest, or take $7,500 off MSRP on every new Nissan Ariya, Armada SUV, or Titan truck. And only Matt Blatt Nissan has a 4-day love it or leave it return policy. Have a job clearing $350 per week? We want to approve you today. And AJ wants your trade. MattBlattNissan.com. Link qualifications exist with approved credit. $2,778 per thousand finance line. In stock 2023 Rogues. Pathfinder Altima. Not all will qualify. Go to MattBlattNissan.com for complete details or call 844-917-4758. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes. Stock $589. Sale price $31,774. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike. Egg Harbor Township.
To every woman with a will and a workbench. Every mom with a miter saw she's not afraid to use. Every daughter with a drill and the drive. To the women who get their nail guns together. The ones who are welding the gap. The same ones who DIY like no one's watching. At the Home Depot, we see the potential in you because you see the potential in everything. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.
Great, it's yours. See you then.
Nathan's Tiki-themed bar is swimming in end-of-year party bookings.
Where can I find that many servers? They want headlamps? And I'm going to need to find a band.
He needs caterers to navigate the rising tide.
No, Mario, not your cousin's cover band.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to tonight's debate on the name of New Jersey's iconic breakfast meat. Everyone knows it's pork roll. Hey, calm down. The debate can finally be won thanks to the New Jersey Lottery's meaty new scratch-offs. The Jersey Debate with a top prize of $200,000.
Play the Jersey Debate. Name that meat scratch-offs with over $13 million in prizes. Anything can happen in Jersey.
Next topic. Is there a Central Jersey?
Must be 18 or older to buy a lottery ticket. Please play responsibly. If you or somebody knows a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I had a nighttime routine for my frequent heartburn. I would drink milk. I would sleep upright with more pillows. But that painful burning stayed. So I made Prilosec OTC part of my morning routine. With just one pill each morning, Prilosec OTC prevents excess acid production, blocking heartburn day and night. Now I have a new nighttime routine. I call it sleeping.
1 pill a day, 24 hours, 0 heartburn. With Prilosec OTC. It's possible while taking Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now, you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top-quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right. You don't pay a for an entire year. Plus, save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait. Text PLACE to 200-300.
Time to tee it up at the 40th Annual Ranch Hope Wranglers Golf Tournament, Friday, June 2nd at Centerton Golf Club, presented by Woodruff Energy. Proceeds will benefit Ranch Hope's youth activities. Ranch Hope is entering its 59th year serving the youth and families of New Jersey. Their tournament is made possible by Comtech Systems, PSEG Nuclear, Mannington Flooring, Atlantic City Electric, First National Bank of Elmer, SJ Water Conditioning, Heritage Dairy Stores, RCL Solar, Foster Carney Foundation, and Pennsville Bank. Let's tee it up for Ranch Hope, sponsored by your registry.org.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Our conversation right now with Bryan Toporek from the NBA podcast being brought to you by Jenkins. One call does it all. Just call 609-641-6440. From new heat and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, drain cleaning services, whatever you need. See a leak repair? Call an expert. Jenkins & Sons, 609-641-6440, online at jenkinsandsons.com. Maybe the Celtics need to call Jenkins because, they've been through 3 different head coaches and they seem to have the same problem. And we spent the last several months, and Bryan Toporek knows this better than anybody. I mean, how many times have we heard it's Harden leaving? Are we breaking up the Sixers? Now, maybe the question has to be, do we need to break up Tatum and Brown? Because apparently their coach trusts them more than they trust themselves. Bryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. I think if anything, we do not want the Celtics to repair anything that's broken about them, at least over the next 4 days. So hopefully they aren't listening right now.
Well, let's get into yesterday because one of the comments that has been brought up today a lot is PJ Tucker. The fact that is he really the difference? Because realistically, you got less athletic, but more mentally tough by adding PJ Tucker. And Bryan, you saw Twitter. Why are you paying this old guy so much money? Well, you could argue, not for PJ Tucker yesterday, maybe they don't win that game.
I don't think they do. I mean, he comes up with that offensive rebound and one to tie the game late in the fourth quarter, yells at Joe afterward, kind of gets Joe's head back in the game when he was clearly starting to fade down the stretch. I mean, I think we just have to listen to what the players and what the coaching staff and what Daryl Morey has said throughout the year. Like, we aren't privy to everything behind the scenes, but they, to a man, all swear by PJ's leadership, his experience, him helping them stay even keeled in these situations. How many times have we said throughout the year, this is a game that they don't win in past years? Yesterday was a game they don't win. If they give away a 16-point lead or whatever it was, you're down 5 with 2 minutes left, it probably would have been a 10, 11-point loss in past years. So I think, I mean, the offensive rebound was obviously huge, but I think his steadiness has been a huge lift for them as well.
Is it fair if I tell you in the audience that I think that was the most gritty Sixers win since Andre Iguodala was in uniform in a playoff game?
Yeah, I think given the stakes, I mean, if they go down 3-1 going back to Boston for Game 5, the season's over. I mean, technically, yes, they could have won 3 straight, but there would be nothing to give you confidence in their ability to do so.
Exactly.
Now, tied 2-2, I mean, the Celtics are still favored to win this series. They've got home court advantage, but once you get further and further into the playoffs and then further and further into the playoff series, every game takes on its own identity. Like, we've had 2 James Harden games so far. Do we get a Tyrese Maxey game? Do we get a Tobias Harris game, a Joel Embiid game? DeAnthony Melton had a huge game in game 1. Does he come off the bench, hit 5 threes again, swing a series? Because now you're just, the variance of each game, it doesn't, you don't need it 4 times anymore. You need it once or twice and you're able to move on.
When you think about moving forward, what this means, because we walked into the weekend tied at 1. We come out of the weekend now tied at 2. It's not like either team has really, made a statement. So what can we take away from the first 4 games, Bryan Toporek?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way game 3 played out in particular was very disappointing, but you have to be certainly encouraged by the way the Sixers responded in game 4. They took the fight to the Celtics for what felt like the first time all series, and they sputtered late in part because they trimmed their rotation, which Doc said afterward. He said fatigue was a big issue, and I think that is one thing you've got to keep an eye on. The good thing about game 4 being in an afternoon, you've got more than 48 hours to recover for game 5, but still it's only 1 day away. Joel Embiid playing on an injured knee that, he has said is not going to be fully healed, picked up 46 minutes in that game. So is there a way to buy him a little bit more rest? Paul Reed played 6 minutes yesterday. Can you trust him for 10 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that, just to give Embiid a little bit more gas in the fourth quarter or overtime, God forbid if it comes to that again? Because, I think there was a clear difference between Embiid in the first half of that game and even the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter when Al Horford turned back the clock and made it look like 2018 all over again.
So with Bryan Toporek, of course, you can check out the NBA podcast, subscribe, download wherever you get your podcasts. You also check out his coverage with Liberty Ballers and Forbes Sports. You mentioned Horford. Someone asked this question earlier. I'll ask you as well. What do we make of Al Horford at this point? I mean, this guy is getting older. He isn't getting any younger. And somehow he is still a major contributor for the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, he's just smart, like b-ball IQ. And I think it shows up, especially when guys age and maybe lose half a step. But Horford showed in game 3, he can knock down 3-point shots on high volume. He was only 2 of 7 from deep yesterday. So it was good to see him cool off. But I think the Celtics for years have given Embiid in particular a lot of trouble. Horford takes the matchup initially, but then they send additional help, and they have a lot of good help defenders. Their scheme is solid. They know. I think one of the big differences we've seen between the Celtics and the Sixers so far is when the Celtics are double teaming or when they're sending help at Embiid, their rotations to cover up, someone is going to be open. Their rotations to scramble back are a lot crisper than the Sixers have been. We're seeing this more as the series goes on when, the Tatum and Brown in particular are trying to hunt Tyrese Maxey. The Sixers are sending a double when they do that. And then, that contributed to this fourth quarter comeback for the Celtics yesterday. But I think Horford, it's a testament to him that he's been able to hold his own against Embiid for as long as he has. The tables finally seem to be turning this year, but with Embiid certainly not 100% health, that helps even the playing field a bit more toward Horford. So, it's going to be a battle going into game 5. There's, I think, I forget which one. I think it was Harden who said this after game 4. It's like, we know each other's plays now. Now it's just a matter of execution and playing hard.
So then with that being said, who do you trust to execute right now?
I mean, can you tell me which version of James Harden's going to show up tomorrow?
I don't know. I don't know if James knows.
I mean, if we get game 1 and game 4 Harden, I feel pretty good about the Sixers' chances. If we get game 2 and game 3 Harden, I feel less great.
But here's the problem with that. Is James Harden not one of the hardest athletes to ever read that you could think of? This guy literally, he said after the game yesterday, I just want to win, man. And it's like, well, yeah, you're playing sports. That's the goal. You want to win. It's like the guy, he is so hard to read because the average fan, they get PJ Tucker. He's screaming. He's doing stuff. They get Embiid, with the raising of the hands. They get Maxey with the putting the 3 in the air, right? But people look at Harden. We don't know what to do with him in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is, he swears he's this aggressive every game, but he's not. I mean, there are definitely some times where he came out yesterday and had an aggressive attacking mindset right away, which I think is what we saw in game 1 without Embiid. He knew going into that game, all right, Joe's out, we don't have this 30-point per game scorer to carry us. Hopefully Maxey and Melton and Harris pick up their share of the load as well. But like, this is on my shoulders. Then Embiid comes back in game 2. You don't know what he's going to give you. Was certainly not as effective as he has been in games 3 and 4. But, Embiid's kind of been a security blanket for the Sixers really throughout his entire tenure here, where he can make up for a lot of mistakes on both ends of the floor, frankly. But right now, with him in the state that he's in, he is not 100%. And I think Harden, Maxey, Tobias, they all need to keep that game 1 mindset of, we are going to have to help carry him as much as he helps carry us. He can give us whatever he can, but like, we can't necessarily turn to him as our closer in the fourth quarter, which is what, if healthy, we saw a lot during the regular season. It was just spam pick and rolls in the fourth quarter, get the ball to Embiid at the nail, at the free throw line, let him go to work. We saw yesterday, especially if he's playing 40 plus minutes, maybe that's not such a viable strategy.
Talk with Bryan Toporek. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter at @Toporek. Check out the NBA podcast. Like, subscribe, download wherever you get your podcasts. I want to ask you about the other series as well, because this NBA postseason is turning out to be something really exciting. I want to get your thoughts on the game tonight. Lakers, Warriors. Is this series, should we just all assume this series is going 7 games, or is something going to happen the next 2 games that you think is going to break this series one direction or another? Because I'm getting the feeling that the only series that might not go 7 games at this point is Heat Knicks, because nobody knows who's showing up from game to game.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was very wrong about Warriors Lakers going into game 3. I thought the Warriors in game 2 had found something, made some adjustments that I thought they were possibly going to cruise for the rest of the series. And that was very, very much not the case. So I'm excited to see what's in store for that game tonight. Like, I have zero read on who's going to win the series, how long it's going to go. Anthony Davis has just been phenomenal in game 1 in particular. Game 2 was kind of a dud for him, but kind of dud for the Lakers in general. But
it's all odd number games for 80 at this point.
That's right. Yeah. Can we figure out the system for Harden then in that case? But no, I think it's both teams. It's just really interesting because it's such a contrast in styles. Like, Daryl Morey, is partially responsible for this, as is Stephen Curry and the Warriors. But, every team started playing the same way because of Morey ball, where you're prioritizing shots at the rim and 3-point shots. And, the Warriors swung it even more. Like, every team is firing just exponentially more threes than they were even a decade ago. And this Lakers-Warriors series, the Lakers are like, we don't necessarily, we're not going to outshoot the Warriors. We know who's on the other side. Like, we're okay if the Warriors are going to shoot more threes, but we are going to own the paint. And it's just fun to see that contrast play out when all of these other series, there's not as much of a stylistic difference between Sixers and Celtics or Nuggets and Suns as there is Lakers and Warriors.
What do we do about this Nuggets Sun series moving forward, considering the only thing we're talking about is Jokic not getting a suspension when we all know he shouldn't get suspended? And as far as I'm concerned, the fine should be paid by the Suns owner, Matt Ishbia, because, like, what on earth are you doing sitting there anyway? And why is your buddy standing next to you acting like he's ready to get in a bar fight with a guy who's, like, obviously a foot taller than him? Like, the whole situation by everyone involved was bad.
Yeah, I'm glad common sense prevailed and Jokic will not be suspended for game 5, because that would be a terrible asterisk on what otherwise is shaping up to be a legendary series. The Suns going down 2-0, Chris Paul is hurt. Everyone is ready to write them off entirely. But Devin Booker in particular has just been in full supernova mode really throughout the entire playoffs. Like, we were maybe ready to just not write it off, but like against the Clippers when no Paul George and Kawhi goes down early in that series, it's like, all right, you beat up on Marcus Morris, who cares? But now, you're beating up on the number 1 seed in the Western Conference when you're down 2-0 and this pressure is really ramped up on you. And I mean, the shooting efficiency on the type of shots that he's taking is, I want to say, either unprecedented or very close to unprecedented. He's just shooting primarily jump shots, and he's 63.7% overall, 57.1 from three. He's just been ridiculous, and they're throwing double teams at him. He was just whipping around passes to Landry Shamet. Shout out to the former Sixer. He had a big game last night. They've been daring Jokic to shoot. They're leaning into, we know your strength as a playmaker, so we're gonna, defend you one-on-one, and we're gonna stay true. We're not gonna throw a double at you because we want to stick to your teammates, because that's when you get really dangerous, is when you get rolling as a scorer, then we start throwing a double at you, then you're gonna pick apart our doubles, throw it to Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Davius Caldwell-Pope for some open threes. The Nuggets only had 22 3-point attempts last night. One of the big things, the biggest imbalances early in this series, the Nuggets were shooting far more threes than the Suns. All of a sudden, you're willing to live with Jokic, 53 points on 20 of 30 shooting. It's a ridiculous number all around. But when you've got KD and Booker shooting the way they are and knocking down threes the way they are, and Landry Shamet 5 threes last night, the math problem swung the other way for Phoenix.
Let me ask you a question. How confident are we at this point in time that Denver is going to get out of the West?
I was thinking about this earlier today. The only team that I'm certain is done is the Knicks. And I might put Miami in that camp depending on, I don't think they're done. I think they're going to win this series. They're going to move on to the conference finals.
Right.
Given their injuries right now, I think I would pick either the Celtics or the Sixers ahead of them. Other than that, though, you could tell me any of the other teams remaining in the playoffs win the NBA championship this year, and I'd be like, okay, I can see it. So, yeah, I think the Nuggets have every reason to be worried. I think even if they make it out of this series, the Lakers or the Warriors have the potential to beat them. We said the West, going into the playoffs, we said the West was wide open. We thought the East was going to be relatively chalky. It was not as chalky as we expected. The West, really any of these teams could win, and it would not surprise me whatsoever.
You mentioned Miami and the Knicks. I mean, my only problem with Miami is they're already injured. They're already completely shorthanded. And it's if Jimmy Butler plays that game and he's not out with the ankle injury in game 2, is this series 3-0? And what does that mean for the next round? Because I think you could argue with the injuries that Miami has. As far as I know, I don't think that anyone's coming back the next round for Miami. So, Miami has less depth than the Sixers do, for goodness sake.
Yeah. Credit to Miami and their player development, because you've got Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Caleb Merton, once again, coming out and making an impact despite not having the draft pedigree of some of the guys they're going against. But yeah, I think either Boston or Philly will be a very, very different challenge for Miami than the Knicks will, or even than the Bucks were without Giannis for those few games. And, we saw Jimmy Butler go into superhero mode, especially in games 4 and 5 against the Bucks. So I do not want to totally discount Miami in this conversation, but I do think they'll be underdogs if they do move on to the conference finals, regardless of whether they face the Sixers or the Celtics. I think they would be underdogs. They won't have home court advantage. The best thing they can do for themselves is win tonight, because Emmanuel Quickley is now out. So they have a really good chance of going up 3-1. And I agree with you. If Jimmy Butler plays game 2, this is probably a sweep tonight. And hope Celtics Sixers go 7, because you can buy yourself some much needed rest, especially for Jimmy Butler's ankle. I think you're right that Victor Oladipo is definitely not coming back for the rest of the playoffs. Tyler Hero, I think they said 6 weeks when he got hurt. So, probably best case scenario, you're talking probably the finals. Right. I don't think he's coming back for the conference finals either. So, I think The Knicks don't necessarily have the same personnel as the Celtics or the Sixers do. I think both of them would be much more deliberate about seeking out mismatches. Like Duncan Robinson, they've gotten away with playing in this series, and especially in the first round series. I think both the Celtics and the Sixers, every time he's on the floor, are like, all right, we're going to spam pick and roll until we get Duncan Robinson as the primary defender and then just cook him off the dribble.
He's Bryan Toporek. Give him a follow on Twitter at @Toporek. He is the co-host of the NBA podcast, and he is a contributor for Liberty Ballers and Forbes Sports NBA writer. Bryan, appreciate you jumping on today. Let's hope the Sixers actually don't lose the next game, because the conversation after that is going to be the sky is falling. Although, that's realistic. Even if they win, the sky might be falling. So.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. You have a lot of good news to talk about on your shows throughout the rest of the week.
Listen, either way, it'll be interesting, right?
That's right. Yeah, we'll get content either way. But I'd like to stave off my off-season content as long as possible.
Bryan, take care of yourself.
All right, you too, Josh. Take care.
And my conversation with Bryan Toporek was brought to you by Jenkins & Sons. One call does it all. Give them a call at 609-641-6440 for new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, drain cleaning services, and leak repairs. That's 609-641-6440. And visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com. Coming up next, Matt in Delaware, Jeff in Ocean City, and more. Your guys' messages next here on the Power Hour with me, Josh Hennig, on 97.3 ESPN.
It's Sixers Celtics Game 5 tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
We found a way to win, and that's all that matters in the postseason. So get better and be ready to go and see some things that we can get better at. Be ready to go for Game 5.
It's Sixers playoff basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. Your play-by-play home for Sixers playoff basketball. Coverage begins at 7:30.
We are here with Dr. Scott Hernberg, Medical Director and founder of Tomorrow's Wellness Center in Northfield, one of our 97.3 ESPN industry aces. Dr. Hernberg, tell us about Tomorrow's Wellness Center.
We offer the most advanced technology and evidence-based practices in a holistic and integrative manner to provide optimal health and wellness. We strive passionately to make folks look and feel their best.
You treat ED. How common is ED?
Erectile dysfunction is a very common disorder, particularly as men begin to age. Typically, about 40% of men experience some form of erectile dysfunction.
And what does Tomorrow's Wellness Center do for ED?
We use a protocol called the Gainswave therapy. What this therapy involves is low-intensity shock waves that are essentially sound waves. It's natural, essentially painless procedure used to improve the blood flow as well as to improve the sensitivity.
Dr. Scott Hernberg from Tomorrow's Wellness Center in Northfield. You can find out more at tomorrowswellnesscenter.com.
At Lowe's, we're always bringing pros more ways to save on the brands you trust. Right now, buy a DeWalt 9-gallon corded shop vacuum with accessories at a new low price of $99. Plus, as an MVPs member, earn 3 bonus points per dollar when you buy select concrete mix. You can then redeem for rewards. Because Lowe's knows savings, Lowe's knows pros. While supplies last, discount taken at time of purchase. See associate for details. Valid through 5/17. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. Valid through 6/2. Subject to change.
Carrie, is this schedule the most updated?
There's a wedding season rush at Dr. Iona's dental practice.
You're fully booked this week. We can try and squeeze you in next Tuesday.
She needs a dental hygienist to unveil fresh smiles.
How long has 3 been under the UV light?
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
The roar of our engines, the pump of our heartbeats, the pedal to our metal, the sparks that ignite us, the pistons that push us, the passions that drive us. From the feelings that move us to the places that pull us on the roads that unite us. With nearly 6,000 stores and over 17,000 auto care centers, Napa has America's largest network of parts and care, here to keep you firing on all cylinders.
At Ocean First Bank, our first thought is you.
We put you first in all we do. Community banking for a century. We treat you like your family. Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
Spring into a great rate with our 9-month CD. For a limited time, earn 4.65% APY when you open this CD with at least $10,000 of new money to Ocean First. Don't delay. Visit oceanfirst.com for complete details and to open online.
Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
Certain rules and restrictions apply. Member FDIC.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now, you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top-quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right, you don't pay a dime for an entire year. Plus, save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait. Text PLACE to 200-300.
Quote based on healthy, non-smoking, 30-year-old female with a 20-year term policy. Rates may vary. Eligible policies and estate planning tools can vary by state.
It's a busy life. You have enough to worry about. So here's a great way to check life insurance off your list. It's called Ethos. With the thought of medical exams, forms to fill out, and the cost, it's easy to see why life insurance can fall to the bottom of your to-do list. But at Ethos Life, we've got your back. For about $1 a day, you could get $250,000 in term life insurance without a medical exam. Just go online, answer a few health questions, and snap! Family protected. You could get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and be covered in hours. No medical exams, no blood tests, no hassle. Right now, with your purchase of an eligible policy from Ethos, you'll get something else important to your family. Tools to create a legal will. A $449 value, yours free. Ethos, the 100% online, hassle-free way to get affordable life insurance. Get your free online quote now at ethoslife.com. That's ETHOS life.com.
Take me out of my old car. Get me out of this heap. Approve my credit and cut me some slack. I need a dealer that's watching my back. I gotta make sure it's a great deal. All I have down is my trade. Cause I need a great deal on a brand new car.
Stuck in a longer lease? Matt Blatt Kia wants to get you released. With 0 down and 2.9% financing for 48 months or no payments for 90 days. On every 2023 Kia Forte at sold in stock. Have a job clearing $350 per week? Matt Blatt Kia wants to approve you today. So bring any trade to Matt Blatt Kia and drive home in a brand new Kia with peace of mind. Matt Blatt Kia's exclusive 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
With approved credit, not all will qualify. 2778 per thousand finance. Go to mattblattkia.com for complete details or call 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. And now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free app.
Calls went against Philadelphia. They were so resilient. It was one of those situations where I swear sometimes when you're on the bench and you lead the whole game, you're just saying, like, let the other team take the lead. So we were just playing. But it was 16 points. They looked comfortably ahead. Their defense in the second half really let them down, the 76ers, Kesty. It just seemed that Philadelphia shot 72% in the third quarter, kept clawing back in. Fortunately, in the third, Philadelphia was still making threes. That kept them ahead when they started missing the threes and James Harden carrying them. But he needed help, and Joel Embiid was just completely gassed in the fourth quarter in the overtime. He was out there. He came up with 2 big buckets, but I'll tell you what, he was exhausted.
2 big points there from PJ Carlissimo, who was on the ESPN Radio NBA coverage for the Sixers game on Sunday. One, The Sixers were resilient. When was the last time you could say the Sixers were resilient? Been a while. Just tells you the mindset of this team from what they were versus what they are now. And number two, he said Embiid was gassed. And you have to wonder if Embiid didn't play in game 2, how much more gassed would he have been, and would he have been able to even get through that overtime? You could argue now, every game moving forward, his cardio is going to get better because he's been on the court now every other day playing basketball. He's never going to be 100%. We all know that. But if he's getting better cardio, you have a better chance of winning. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973, Jeff in Ocean City chimes in. Says, Josh, I brought my 13-year-old nephew to his first playoff game yesterday, and it was an electric atmosphere with an amazing finish. Tucker saved the game with that rebound. And I really wanted to see the 2 seed heading into the playoffs. I feel the Sixers may struggle to win game 7 in Boston, but I still have hope. That's Jeff in Ocean City. Well, Jeff, first of all, I'm glad to hear your nephew got to go to the game, got to enjoy it. Number 2, look, the Sixers are going to struggle to win this series no matter what. But the reason why you have hope is because, like PJ Carlesimo said, and others have said the same thing, Boston should have won the game. The Sixers gave up the lead. They were running out of gas, and then they had to fight tooth and nail to get back into it. And now this is multiple times in the postseason and multiple times in the regular season. The 76ers have found ways to win. It may be ugly. It may not be aesthetically pleasing. There may not be some big stat to show for it, except for turnovers. Don't forget the game Sixers win. They win the turnover battle. It's a pretty simple stat. It seems like this team has resilience, and that is something to give you hope, Jeff in Ocean City. Matt in Delaware chimes in and says, nothing against PJ Tucker. It's frustrating, though, when the defense is not even close to him, and it affects Joel and Harden's offense. I think the Celtics smarten up and don't even close out on his three-pointers going forward, but I guess it's a give and take with players like him. You're right. It is a give and take because Tucker is actually a pretty good three-point shooter. The problem is that there have been plenty of times that he has passed up shots. I know that Tobias Harris is looked at as the better three-point shooter, but Tucker has the history of hitting more big shots. So you could argue, I mean, if you're looking for the best lineup to close out games, your best lineup may actually be Harden, Melton, Tucker, McDaniels, Embiid, because if you're trying to hold the lead and still have guys who can make shots, give me Tucker and Melton right now over Maxey and Harris. I think Maxey right now, he's more frustrating for me than Tucker is. I feel like Tucker, he is what he is. But I hear what you're saying, Matt and Delaware. I think there's something going on with Maxey. I don't know if he's just not feeling the flow of the game at times, if he feels like the game is going too much through Embiid and Harden, he's not getting his touches. Again, not 100% sure the reasoning for that, but I understand where you're coming from, Matt in Delaware. I think the Celtics, if they let PJ Tucker shoot too many threes, he's going to burn them. And I think that Tucker is the kind of guy that you can't sag off too much because he has shown you in his NBA career in Houston, in Milwaukee, in Miami, and now in Philadelphia, he can make those shots, and that makes him very dangerous. One more text to squeeze in before we get out of here says, do you think Horford has always done a good job defending Embiid? Horford is a conundrum because Horford is a guy who I think that because Embiid at times is very deliberate and he is very methodical in the way he goes about his offensive execution, that allows Horford to keep up with him. You know, you look at a big man like Bam Adebayo, That's a guy Horford has problems with. Why? Because he's springy and twitchy and explosive. Embiid can be springy, twitchy, and explosive, but he's not all the time. So it gives Horford more of an opportunity to get into his body and box him up and get in his way. To give Embiid use that first step quickness a little more often, Horford be a little less effective. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great night, everybody.
Here's what you missed on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
It was just a poor end-of-game management by the players on the court. Now, somebody could say, well, Joe should have called a timeout, but then almost like you lose your advantage, right? There's something about the moment being chaotic and the defense trying to figure it out on the fly instead of the defense being set.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.